Hey everybody, hopefully you guys can see me and hear me. I am so excited to have you guys joining me for this Facebook, and it was supposed to be on YouTube, but something's going a little wrong on my end, so I apologize for that. But we are live on Facebook, and we will be able to have a replay for you guys after this. So streaming live, and I am so excited to be with you today. I know that the world is a crazy place, and there's a lot of stuff going on right now, but I am thankful that we can join together and be here on this stream together today. We are going to cover a bunch of different things. We're going to do a whole interface overview of ProPresenter 7. As well as we're going to jump into one thing that a lot of people are trying to figure out right now, which is how to get your lyrics over your live stream. And so we're going to spend a good chunk of time doing that. We're going to hear from a special guest, and then we're going to do some other interesting things inside of ProPresenter. So that's kind of the overall what we're going to do today in the show. So I, again, am so thankful to join you wherever you're watching, whether you're at home or maybe you're the lone person in your church building right now. It's so great to have you. I'm going to be looking down every once in a while over here because I know I got Cody over in the chat, as well as I think Brad and some of the rest of the Renewed Vision team will be hanging out there to answer questions. If you have specific questions, you can ask those at any time. And they'll try to answer them, as well as they'll push some through to me, and we will try to answer some of those on this stream as well. So again, really glad to be here. Hopefully all this works smoothly, and we will get into this right now. So we're going to just start with kind of a basic overview of ProPresenter 7. A lot has changed from ProPresenter 6 to ProPresenter 7, and the program is more powerful than ever. And if you haven't downloaded 7.0.5, make sure you download that, because the performance increases in that new update are phenomenal. It works amazing. The development team has been working super hard to make sure the program is working at its best, and so 7.0.5 is an awesome new update, and so make sure you guys go download that right now. So let's jump in. I'm not seeing anything from Cody that's saying anything's going wrong, so I'm going to dive right into our interface overview, and we'll take a look at ProPresenter. So here we go. So the ProPresenter interface, as you can see, has kind of changed from version 6. We have a new dark interface, and this interface is set out in a logical left to right workflow, where on the left side of the screen you can see we have our libraries, which you can now have multiple libraries, and you can see all of your playlists below there. Whatever you have selected shows up below your items. So in our playlist area here, we can click on our sample playlist. We can see all of the different items inside of that playlist. Or if I select a library like presentations, I'll see all of the different items that are inside of that library. So currently that only has this one document that I created here for the beginning of the stream. But our sample playlist, we can go here, click on it, we can pull up a song, and we'll click on that and see that there. And then we can start firing cues. So whatever we have selected will show up here, and we can start clicking on stuff and sending that live. If we want to see what that output looks like, I did make it so we can go to full screen so we can check that out and see our live output as well. So we have all of our stuff there. You can see now songs automatically import with new colors as well as hotkeys. So if you never used hotkeys in the past and you're like, what is this A, C, S, all of this different stuff in this song, those are hotkeys to quickly go to different sections of the song. So if I hit S, it's going to jump to verse 2. If I hit C for chorus, it's going to jump to the chorus. If I hit B for bridge, it's going to jump to the bridge. And that's the same in every song. So I can go over to Waymaker, and I can click on C, and it's going to jump to the first chorus of Waymaker. So we can click through our songs just like that. The next thing that's kind of changed in this area is a new easy view. So let's say you are working on this song and your volunteer really is struggling seeing this text with the theme that you have set up. Whoops, I need to switch back over to my screen. Sorry about that. There we go. In the center area here, you might notice that we have your text might be set up in a way that your volunteer can't see super easily. And so there's a new view called Easy View that if we click on that, we can now see an easier formatted view of our text. So it's just plain text of what's on the slide. And you can right click on that or click the settings icon here, and we can adjust the alignment and the size of that so we can make that even bigger. And it's just easier to view that text. And then we can switch back to our grid view. Or you could just hit the tilde key on your keyboard and it will automatically switch over to that easy view for you. So it's a really simple and easy way to view any text that's currently on your screen. Now the next thing that we have is our new preview area over here. And you'll see currently that we have our preview and we can see kind of what's going on. But next to it, you'll see all new clearing buttons. We have a clear all button that will clear all the slide content. And then you'll see new clear layer buttons over here. And these are laid out in stacking order because ProPresenter is laid out with multiple layers that come together to build your final content. So on the bottom, you have your video input layer, and then above there, we have our media layer, and then our slide layer. Above that, we have the brand new announcements layer that we'll talk about a little bit later. And then above there, we have props and then messages. And then above there, we have audio, which audio is kind of separate from a visual layer. So it's just at the top of the stack. And then below our preview area, you'll see our playback controls. And we have playback controls for our what's currently playing in our media layer. We also have playback controls for what's playing in the announcements layer. And we have playback controls for what's playing in the audio bin. I don't have any audio media loaded in right now, but if we clicked on anything, we would see playback controls for that playing at the same time as the playback controls for the background that's currently playing. So and these clearing buttons, you can see what is currently active and then know what you're going to clear out. So it makes you confident to know what's showing up in ProPresenter at any time. So I could click clear slides and it's going to clear my slide content, or I could click clear media and it will clear my media content. And you'll see clear all is not activated because there's nothing to clear. But again, if I click on some content, you'll see the layers enable when they're being used. And when we take them off, you'll see the button's not there. So I can't clear anything because it's not active, but as soon as I click on a layer, it's going to activate it. Now currently our slides are set to a hard cut. I could set this to a dissolve, and now when I hit clear, it's going to fade that away because again, it's using the transition from our document or our master transition for our slide layer for our clearing actions. So that's how that stuff works. And so hopefully that's making sense, this left to right workflow. And again, if you have questions about any of this stuff or I'm going too fast, you can always jump into the chat, or there's already a bunch of comprehensive tutorials that I made that are on the Renewed Vision YouTube channel. And so you can go check those out after the video. So I encourage you guys to check those things out. But we'll continue going through some more things about the interface and then jump into how to do some live streaming stuff here in just a second. So back in the interface, you'll see at the bottom of the screen, we have our media bin. This used to be called the video and image bin. This is now our media bin where we have all of our different playlists. We can have different folders. So you'll see some CMG content here. We can go click on this and we can like fire up a different background if we want from the media bin. Go back and click on our slides. Everything's super fluid and smooth. It works great. We got some VMC content down here. And then we have our video inputs. Shoot. This dock is driving me crazy today. It keeps appearing when I don't want it to appear, so I apologize. We'll just kind of minimize that thing super small and kind of get that out of our way for right now. Down here we have our video inputs, and so we can have multiple video inputs inside ProPresenter 7, which is really handy, and so you can bring in a bunch of different stuff that way as well, and so you can load those in there. The next thing that has changed outside of all of this is kind of the main view of the whole program. So I'm going to kind of clear all of this out. And we have our show view that we're in right now, but we could switch over to edit. And when we click on edit, it's going to change the layout of the entire screen. And we're going to see the main editor. And this is a full screen editor that's really easy to use and is a much more enjoyable experience. So currently we're in seeing a slide here, and you'll see on the left side we see all of our slides. Below the slides you'll see any objects that are on the current slide. So we have like this text box here, And then below, and then in our main area here, you can see our actual text. So and when we click on that, we now have new properties that show up for our text that we have selected. And you'll see right now that this is set to a fill color, but we can also fill with something like a gradient. So we could go in here and we could set a gradient and go with some, crazy, gradient here. And then we could go to our text settings and we could go in and we could change our text from, maybe that to white. And so now we have this new look for our text here, and we can quickly change this. Again, the shape settings here, you can do more than just a color. You can do a gradient background. You can actually do media fills, web fills, video inputs, and even slide objects if you want to get super crazy. We also have a stroke just for our shape, which our text is inside of. We have a shadow just for the shape, so you'll see a shadow showing up for those two boxes, and that's different than the shadow that you have for your text. So you can have a different shadow for your text than your shape. And then you have feathering, so you can actually kind of feather the edges of your shape, which is a really cool look. And then you have options for visibility that we'll talk about in a little bit, because the visibility options are really, really powerful in how they work. And then finally, we have our different text settings in here. We can copy text styles to different slides. We have stroke and shadow options. This is where we enable or disable our lines only option. And then we can do things like lists, and we can link text, which again is a super powerful option that we have available inside of ProPresenter 7 to do all sorts of really interesting things. And then finally, we have our build option. So this is where you can do your different slide builds. So that's all right there. So that's kind of the main editor. We also have our reflow editor. And if you're not used to using the reflow editor, the reflow editor really is the best way to edit large portions of text inside of ProPresenter. So if you need to kind of reformat how a song is going, or you need to add some new slides, this is the easiest way, because we can go in and hit insert slide break a couple times, and then we can go in here, and if you know me at all, I'm going to go in and add like a new group that's called like background, because I always love having my background group. Maybe try spell that right as I'm typing here. And then we can go down and we can add one more group. We'll call this one blank. And then we can start setting up an arrangement that uses all of these different groups in here. So we actually already have a blank one here at the top. But so now we can add all those in. If we wanted to like change up how this text is formatted, we could split into new lines. We could add a new slide break. So it's a really easy way to edit all of the text on all of your slides instead of having to click into individual text boxes on every single slide. So that's a really handy editor. And then next we have Bibles. So if we click on Bibles, this will show us our Bible editor here. And I'm going to be honest, this is a brand new computer, and I forgot before this tutorial started to install some Bibles. And so we will get to that in just a little bit. But the last thing that we have here is all of our different other editors. So we have a stage editor, we have theme editor, props, and CCLI. And so if I go to the stage editor, we can actually edit our stage displays, and you'll notice that our stage displays, or our stage screens they're now called, use the exact same editor as our regular slide editor. So you no longer have this different editing interface. You now are using the same editing interface, and you can add in all of the same different shapes and text and all the different things that you could add in ProPresenter 7's regular editor. You can now add in the stage editor as well. So I'm going to just check in real quick with Cody and just make sure we have everything. I will get some free Bibles added in here in just a moment. But let's, as you guys are asking questions and stuff like that, we're going to jump into live streaming and how to get your text over your live stream, because I know for a lot of us, and there's a lot of content that we can cover today, and so we're going to kind of stick to some of the main stuff that really everybody's trying to figure out. And I know everyone's trying to figure out, how do you get your lyrics over your live stream? As we're all kind of hunkered down and people aren't meeting in person anymore, we need to figure out how to be able to have text so people can sing along with us as we're streaming. And so there are 3 different main ways that we get our lyrics over our live stream. The first way is through hardware outputs. The second way is through software or over the network. And then the last way is, again, through an output, but you're not doing an alpha channel through multiple outputs. You're doing either a chroma key or a luminance key. And so we're going to jump inside the program. I'm going to talk about how to utilize multiple screens and how you can set up those screens to work with your different hardware or network screened options. So let's jump back in. So inside ProPresenter, one of the biggest things that changed in ProPresenter 7 is that we have the ability to use as many physically connected or network connected screens as you want. And you can also use placeholders to set these up ahead of time. So if you're trying to test things, you can set them up with placeholders and do all sorts of fun stuff with that. The way that we configure these is by going to Screens and Configure Screens. Here you'll see our main screen configuration. And in our main screen configuration, we can see that we have different audience and stage screens. Currently, I have 2 different audience screens set up. And again, audience screens are screens that people in your audience are going to see versus stage screens, which are meant to help people who are on stage or working behind the scenes. And so our audience screen here right now is set to a single screen, and this single screen, we can either have it be a single screen, a mirrored screen, a group screen, or an edge blended screen. So a single screen is just a regular normal single screen. I'm going to add in a new screen here, and I'm going to just set this up with a new placeholder just so we can go through some of the options. So here we have a single screen, or we could set this up to be mirrored. Now mirrored means that we're going to send out multiple outputs of the exact same thing, but just to different destinations. And down here is where we can set our destinations. So we have our regular outputs, and so here you'll see any system screen. So I have a TV hooked up as well as my iMac screen. And then you'll see I also have a Blackmagic device hooked up to this that I could send an output out of. Or I could send outputs over NDI. Now, NDI is a network, a way to send video across your network. And so once you enable this, you're now sending video across your network, and other computers on the same network can see this. This isn't going to the internet. This is all about your local network. And then you have siphon, which allows you to send video signal from ProPresenter to another program on your same computer. And then finally, we have the placeholders that we're using right now. So we can set up these different mirrored screens. You can set up as many mirrored outputs as you want. We would recommend that you don't use mirrored screens if you can accomplish it using external hardware, because it's only going to add a bigger workload to the computer. So if you can add an SDI splitter outside of your computer, there's no use in adding, multiple outputs that are the exact same thing. But if you do want to send an NDI output and a physical output via one of your physical displays, this is a great way to do it of the same thing. Then we can do group screens. This is where we do big, massive, video walls and multi-screen setups where we have multiple screens creating one large image. And then if you want to blend projectors together, this is where you would do this with edge blending, where you can set up multiple projectors that are blending together to create one large seamless image. So those are the different options you have, and we're going to look at some of the settings here in a second. So if I go to my main screen here, you'll see that right now it's set up to siphon out, and that's how I'm able to show you the main output from ProPresenter. So when I switch over to this, my OBS is actually bringing in a siphon output, and that's showing my main output from ProPresenter. So that's how I'm switching between these two different things. This is a siphon output, and this is just OBS doing a screen capture of my computer right now. If I go back into my screen configuration, you'll see that we have siphon set up, and we can set the size of our siphon output, which currently is just 1280 by 720, and the output target is full, which means it's taking the full output image there. Now, we also can set up a screen that is an NDI screen. And so here we have another audience screen, and this one I'm setting up to send over NDI. And again, NDI is a way to send video over your network. You have options for what the frame size and frame rate is. Now, since this is a network dependent thing, we need to make sure that we don't send more data than we really have to across our video streams. And so if for your live streams, or if you're doing this wirelessly, set this as low as still looks good. So instead of sending this big, huge 1920 by 1080 stream, maybe set this down to 1280 by 720, or you could even go lower than that if you wanted to. So I'm using a 720p stream here that you can see, and then we have a new option that shows up for alpha key, and I can enable alpha key, and what that means is if there is no background, I'm sending alpha information. And so inside of OBS or different software, you can get an alpha version of your text right inside of that program, which is really awesome. This alpha option also shows up if you connect the correct hardware that supports alpha keying. Now, when I talk about hardware that supports alpha keying, I'm talking about there's different Blackmagic devices that you can get. All of these are listed in the Renewed Vision store, and what these do is they allow you to send an output from ProPresenter, and then inside of the device, it's actually creating two different signals. One is your key signal and one is your fill signal. And so the key signal is kind of telling your video switcher what to get rid of, what to remove, and the fill signal is saying what's actually left over at the end of that. So the key signal usually is a black and white gradient kind of look to it, and your fill signal is actually full video and all of that kind of stuff. And so you need specific hardware to be able to enable alpha key. You can't just hook in HDMI out into your computer and click like, I want alpha signal sent over HDMI. It doesn't work that way. You need specific hardware. However, with NDI, you can actually send that that transparency, that alpha information over NDI into other programs, which is a real big pro to NDI. And again, in the past in ProPresenter, all of this stuff was like an add-on, and so ProPresenter 7 having all of these modules included is a huge game changer. And so this makes so much more possible and way easier than ever before. So we'll go back and continue to look at how we're setting this up. So again, we have our NDI set up, and let's look at how this works with OBS. Now, things are going to get a little crazy here for a second just because I have to show you the screen capture of my screen and OBS at the same time. So you're going to see some, some wild stuff happening here for a second. So I'm going to pull in OBS, and like I said, it's going to go a little crazy. I'm going to add a new layer inside of OBS. And this layer is going to be an NDI source. Now, you won't see this option in OBS unless you get the right add-on. And so if you go to do a Google search and just search for OBS NDI and click on this page, it's going to bring you to the OBS website, and there's going to be a link here to go to download for this integration. And it kind of looks like you're maybe in a forum or something like that, but this is the legitimate OBS NDI integration. If you click go to download, it's going to bring you to GitHub, which is a developer community where this plugin is available at because OBS doesn't support NDI natively. And in here, you'll see install instructions as well as the download files that you need to enable NDI in your computer. So now, after that's installed, you'll see this NDI option. I'm going to click NDI source. I'm going to create a new NDI source. Hit OK, and in here I can look for my source. So in here I'm going to go to this computer. I'm going to select that. I'm also going to check this box to fix alpha blending, and that's going to allow my alpha blending to work, and I'm going to hit OK. Now you're going to see right now that like, hey Brad, that doesn't look like it's working right. But if I go back inside ProPresenter and I clear out my media layer, and then I go back to OBS, you'll see that we now have alpha text over top of our image. And so now when I click through any of my text, it's going to instantly change. You're going to see all of the fading and all of that kind of stuff. So that's how we're getting our NDI content through OBS. So now you can see that's in here. If I click through and you'll see this, showing up. So if I had this over video, you could see how we can put this wherever we want. We can scale this up and change this. So that's a really, really easy way for us to add in our output. Now, if you are still, I gotta delete that. So if you are still wanting to display to maybe your main auditorium screen, or you still have, video you want on the back of your stage, but you want a different output that's just this alpha version of your output going to your live stream or to OBS, let's look at how you do that. So the way we do that is by using looks. And looks allow you to enable and disable different layers on your different screens and configure different looks of your slides on those different screens. So if we go to Edit Looks, you'll see in here that I have all of my different screens that we had listed, and screen 1 here is that NDI screen. And so here I can change my look to have different things enabled or disabled. So for my live stream, I would only want my slide layer. So if media accidentally starts playing, it doesn't show up and take over the stream. I also can click here and I can add a new lyric style. So I could add a new lyric style that's maybe like a lower third look. So I think there's one in here. Yeah, so like a scripture lower third here, or we could go to this white box one and use this guy, or you can make your own. And so there's a bunch of different looks that we can add in, but you can easily make your own, and then it's going to automatically apply that look to the slide at all times. So if we go in and say maybe the scripture lower third here, and I go back over to my preview window and I switch. So right now my main screen looks like this, but if I go to my preview window below there, I can click to switch between my different screens. So I'm going to click screen 1, and you'll see that that's showing my differently formatted version of my look, and that would be what it would be looking like on my live stream. Now we can make that look different, but that's the idea of how looks can kind of reformat what's going on. So again, if you're trying to set up NDI and ProPresenter, you would set up maybe Wirecast or OBS on a separate computer, or vMix. There's a bunch of different software streaming programs. You'd set that up on a separate computer if possible, because encoding video is very processor intensive and you don't want to do all of that work on the same machine. And then on your ProPresenter machine, you would enable an output that has NDI, and that would be sending signal via NDI out to ProPresenter or out to OBS, and you would bring that in a layer like I showed just a minute ago. And so that's one way that you can get your content in. The next way is that you could actually do this with Siphon. And so Siphon brings in only your full screen, so it doesn't actually bring in, I'm going to backtrack on that a second. This is all live. I got to figure this all out on in real time here. So we'll talk about Siphon in a minute. Let's go back and now talk about if you only have an alpha key or you have a luma key, and how would you handle that? So an alpha key is when you're going to key out, or not alpha key, a green screen key. So you're going to key out a color, or a luminance key. So if we're going to key out a green or luminance, basically we're just sending a full output of ProPresenter to another program, either over HDMI or over, you could do this via NDI if you wanted to, and then you would use a keying plugin or a keying feature of your video switcher to take out the background. So in this scenario, if we switch back over, in this scenario, we would just want to make sure that our text is really, really simple. And so we would want to make sure that like our text is formatted differently. So let's actually go create a new theme based on one here. So I'm going to go to the editor. I'm going to click on this slide, and we're going to get rid of this box. We're going to get rid of the stroke. We're going to take our text size. We're going to turn this up and make this a bit larger. So let's go to like 90. And oops, we're going to change the size of that to like 90, and we need to make our text box a little bit bigger. So now we have that, and we're going to place this down where we want it in our live stream. And then basically when we go in to show, we can, instead of having a background here, we can remove this background. So I'm just going to remove this background. And now on our stream, we would just see our text low like this, and we would have a black and white background. And then you would use a luminance key to say only keep the brightest values, which is our white text. Now, if we wanted to apply this new look to all of these slides, we can right click on this. We can go to themes, and I'm going to say new theme from selection. And I'm just going to call this Brad's, and we're going to say save. And this is going to save a new theme. And now I can select all of the slides in this document. I'm going to right click, go to theme and Brad's, and we're going to just apply that theme to all of these different slides. And it should apply it to all of them. I'm not sure why that one slide didn't update there, but let's see if it just the screen didn't refresh for that slide, but we have all of them are working correctly. We have all of our text showing exactly the way we want it to, and now we could use that for all of our different slides. And so ProPresenter would just be outputting either via HDMI to your maybe your ATEM switcher, and then you could bring this in and do a Luma key on it. And so you would key out kind of basically the black in the background, and you would keep the white on top. Now let's make one more look, and let's do for a green screen. So this one is pretty easy. We're going to add a new shape. So I'm just clicking the add icon. We're going to add a new rectangle. I'm going to take this rectangle and I'm going to just kind of scale it out. You'll see that there's really great new guides that we get. So if I wanted to make this shape a certain size, I could do that with these guides, but I'm going to make this the full size of the slide. And then down here, I want to put this behind my text. So I'm just going to drag it in the layer order behind. And then now I'm going to go to my shape settings, and I'm going to change my color fill, and I'm going to just find a nice neon green, which is what people typically use for keying. And you can go look up online and find the specific hex value. So you could click on your little color picker, and you could actually type in your hex value. Where is that at? I think you can type it in one of these. Oh yeah, instead of grayscale, you could go to RGB, and then you could type in the RGB values for the perfect like green color that you want to use. But you know, maybe we want our green to be just like this. So it's like a very greeny green. Looks terrible for this, but it's great for a video switcher. And now again, we're going to go back out here, and in our editor, we can see this is our correct slide. That's all green. We're just having a little bit of a refresh where's that slide at now? I lost it. Oh no, I lost it. Hopefully you guys are asking some questions in the chat and finding answers to those as I try to find, well, we can just do this again. Where did it go? I'm really sorry, guys. I lost my green slide here. Well, let's just make a new one then, Brad. Why don't we? Because it won't take that long. Okay, so we're going to just go to our first slide in the song. We're going to add a new shape, rectangle. I am going to make this green. And we'll use our little color picker. We'll go to RGB sliders. We'll say our green is super green. Our blue is super not. Our red is super not. And then we'll just pull that down. So this is like all green all the time. We'll call that good for right now. So we have our look there. Now I can go back to show, and I'm going to just click on this guy. I'm going to say theme, Brad's, and I'm going to say add selection to theme. And now, again, if I click on this, we should see our green screen background. Our slide is just not updating right now. Maybe it will. Yeah, we're just not having, I'm not sure why that's not updating for us currently. And then we will select all of our slides, right click, go to themes, and add in our green screen theme. And now all of our slides will be applied with this green screen look. So I can send out that green screen text over HDMI or any sort of output to my video switcher. And you can again use that theme to customize only one output. So maybe for our main screen, we want to leave this normal. So let's go to like Waymaker here real quick, and we'll see that this would just be normal. It would just look like that. But if I go to my looks and say edit looks, I can go to screen 1 and I can select Brad's and this green screen template. And now when I click on this text, you'll see my main screen looks this way, and my second screen over NDI is getting this. So it's a way that you can have two different looks happening at the exact same time. Now we're going to take and pause just for a second in our tutorial, and we're going to come back to some stuff in a minute, but I know that a lot of us are scrambling right now to figure out how to live stream just for this Sunday. And so we're scrambling to figure out, like, how can I piece all this stuff together and make some sort of streaming rig happen, because we haven't been streaming before. I need to, figure out how to get my ProPresenter lyrics over top my stream. But a lot of this is like just rushing to make maybe this Sunday or the next couple Sundays happen, but we don't know necessarily how long all the restrictions on large gatherings are going to happen. And for a lot of us, I know people have been saying to me, like, well, I wanted to start streaming and this kind of just forced me into it. We weren't quite ready, but now I guess I have to figure it out. We were planning on implementing it. And a lot of solutions that are being thrown out right now are really great last minute solutions, but they might not be the best solution in the long run. And so I'm going to switch over to a Skype call with Renewed Vision's friends at Living as One. And I have Paul from there, and I got to change a couple things here. This is a new thing for me, just getting our Skype call in here. So let's unmute. Paul, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here, Brad. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. So now I just got to jump over to you, and hopefully we can find you.
Yeah, cool. Thanks, Brad. Thank you for having me, and would love to talk a little bit about streaming and just talk about the differences when you're thinking about deploying a streaming solution, which routes you go. There's lots of options out there. There's lots of different streaming protocols and different streaming companies that do different things. And I just wanted to share a little bit about what makes Living as One different and what you should be thinking about when you're talking about having a consistent, really sticky viewing experience for your viewers. And by sticky, I mean that they're engaging and they're watching and they're not leaving. The statistics show right now after two buffering wheels, 70% of your audience is going to leave. And so it's really important to have a streaming platform and a provide a streaming experience where they're not having buffer wheels, where they're not having drop video frames in this live experience. And that's really what Living as One does and what we came from. But essentially, what at Chase Oaks, that was the church I was with a couple years ago. We had a campus that was trying to stream video to other campuses. We were using RTMP and other streaming protocols like SRT and Zixi, basically that do correction on the stream. But we were having an internet outage randomly, and every time that we had the internet outage, the stream would drop. And for those campuses that were at the remote site, they would see that impact their viewing experience. And so we really had to come up with a solution that could stream to these campuses without that video dropouts. And so what we did is we created our own solution that essentially retransmitted the video indefinitely while it was live until it was confirmed as received. And so what that gave was a consistent viewing experience with no dropouts, even if the internet were to cut out or go in or out or have packet loss, which is just essentially data loss over the network connection between those campuses. Oh, great, thank you. So that's what we did. We had that, even though the internet would cut out. We created that system that could retransmit the data indefinitely until the cloud made sure that it has its copy, and then all of the receiving campuses were able to pull from the cloud and from that perfect copy of data. And that's different than every other streaming protocol, because the other streaming protocols, if there's internet trouble, it's going to start dropping the data. They're more concerned about low latency, and we're more concerned about higher reliability and the excellent viewing experience that the viewers required. And so we created that, and that worked for sending to as many campuses as you want. But then we said, well, let's go ahead and take that same technology and apply it to streaming to people at home. And so we actually created a system in the cloud that could take that high quality version that is perfect in the cloud, and we convert that to multiple versions or multiple bit rates. That's called adaptive bitrate streaming. So you might be sending one 1080p version of your video stream out to the cloud, and then in the cloud we convert that to lower resolutions such as 720, 540, 360, etc. And that way your viewers, no matter where they are and no matter what kind of internet connection they're on, it's going to be constantly jumping to whatever is the highest bit rate that they can support on their device and their network. And so that's all happening in the cloud, and they're able to receive, your viewers are then able to receive on any device that they're watching from, whether that be a website, could be on their phone, via an app, or it could be on Roku. You can stream to YouTube and Facebook, all pushing from the cloud with you sending only one copy of that stream. So that's reducing the upload requirements at your broadcast site because you're only sending one high quality stream and it's getting transcoded and pushed from the cloud. And so that's what we created. And so if you're looking to stream online and get up and streaming quickly, you're going to need two things. You're going to need a place for your viewers to watch. That might be a social network like Facebook or YouTube, or it could be a website, and you're going to need a streaming provider. And so if you haven't heard of Church Online Platform, go check them out. They're churchonlineplatform.com. It's a free service put out by Life Church, and they essentially give you a website where you can have scheduling. They give you chat services, and you basically take your embed code, a video embed code provided by your service provider, which could be Living as One, and you plug it into your Church Online Platform page, and then your viewers can watch from there. So you would send them to that web page. And you can even do it as a subdomain, meaning let's say your church website is mychurch.com. You could set it up to be live.mychurch.com, and it actually points to this page. And so check them out if you haven't heard from them. But essentially, you're going to be able to go to any platform that you're wanting to. And let me show you a little bit about what that looks like. So here's the encoders that we provide as well. So as Brad mentioned earlier, you typically don't want to do encoding on the same machine as you're doing these composition or this switching, and you want to have a dedicated machine that is focused only on the compression of the video and then streaming it out. And so we have those hardware devices. We have a portable series for the Ray, and then more of a rack mount solution as well for whatever you need. But if we take a look at Seacoast Church, for example, they're in South Carolina. They've got 14 campuses, and they also have a number of campuses online, including multiple languages such as, I believe they're doing Spanish, English, and French all at the same time online, and they're doing that from one encoder. And so this is the encoder. If they wanted to start streaming, they could click start, or they could just put it on a schedule. There's all schedule automation for all the encoders in SimLive. But every time the encoder starts, you're creating a new event. And so for them, for this last weekend, if we look at their Sunday service, they actually, if I go to the service start, you can tell that.
Hey, welcome everybody.
Let me mute that real quick. They actually were playing back. They had their pastors on site, but they knew that there was nobody in the audience, and so they were speaking directly to their online audience, and that was going out live. And then they actually, what they did after this event was streamed live, they set it up and configured it for SimLive. So SimLive is essentially a replaying of a previous live event, or maybe it could be a file upload that you uploaded to the platform, and you're playing it out, and it's streaming as if it's live. And the platform supports that, and you can plug that into Church Online just the same. And this is what their Church Online platform page looks like. So you can see they have schedules saying like when the next service is going to be. There's a countdown to that. There's the embed code that's coming from the Living as One embed code. And so they are able to give the users, their audience, a place to watch really simply and really easily. So I didn't want to take up too much time. I really appreciate you allowing me on here, Brad, to talk about just how to get that going. If you have any questions about what kind of gear you should get, you need cameras, you need audio gear, check out our webpage. It's livingasone.com/integrators, and there are a number of integrators there that work exclusively with churches that can help you have that conversation. If you need cameras, if you need a switcher, if you need audio gear, they're there to help you out with that.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Paul. And Thanks so much for Living at One, for sharing some of that knowledge with us. Again, you can find that all on their website, and get in touch with Paul and the team there. They would love to be a resource to you, especially in these crazy times that we're in, that we're trying to just figure out how to make things happen that we maybe haven't made happen before, and do it way more reliably, and so that people at home can connect with us super reliably as well. So thanks again, Paul, for joining us today. So I'm going to jump into a few questions that Cody has sent me from the chat. So if you guys are in there, so I'm going to go back to a couple of these. We got a few people asking questions about using their phone inside of OBS, and what does that look like to actually use your phone inside of there. Now, so OBS actually supports once you have NDI enabled inside of OBS, you can actually get apps in the app stores for that take video from your phone and send it over NDI, and then you could use that inside of OBS. So yes, there is a way that you could use a cell phone camera and set it up on a stand super close to your pastor or something like that, and be able to mix it all together. So those are, so that's totally possible. Again, you have latency issues that you need to be worried about, because your network, depending on how good your local area network is and how fast, maybe especially if you're doing it wirelessly, which is the only way to do it with a phone, you're going to have some network reliability issues there. So that would be one. Let's check out our next question here. I kind of lost my spot, so let's scroll in here a second. Can looks be done with Pro 6? Yes, you can do looks in Pro 6, but only if you have the multi-screen module. And because Pro 6 is kind of an end completed package of software, now that we have Pro 7, you can't add the multi-screen module anymore. So just buy Pro 7 if you don't have Pro 6, and you can get that. You can get that multi-screen is all built in, and looks are super, super powerful. But yes, you can do looks inside of 6 and do this sort of thing, but you can only do it with the multi-screen module, and Alpha Keen and all that stuff is extra, and NDI and all of that stuff. Again, you can't really add on any more to Pro 6, so Pro 7 really is your best answer for all of that. Next, the next thing that I want to just hit really quickly, and then I'm going to take a couple more questions, just so you know, one more thing that can be super important right now for you is, how do you actually record the output of ProPresenter? In Pro 6, there's actually a little button in the menu that you could record the output, and this wasn't like a super commonly used feature by a lot of churches. I actually never personally ran into a church that was using this on a regular basis, and but I know now a lot of people are trying to figure out, well, if I'm editing all of my entire service ahead of time, and we're just playing it back on a Sunday morning via like a YouTube premiere or a Facebook premiere or something like that, how do I get like the recording of ProPresenter so I could like maybe edit it all together inside a video editor? And again, this can be done really easily inside of ProPresenter 7. So let's take a look at how we do this. So let's go back to ProPresenter 7. And the first thing that I want to show you is a program called Siphon Recorder. And Siphon Recorder is from the people who created the Siphon protocol. Now, Siphon is a way, again, to take video outside of outside of ProPresenter to another program on your same computer. Now, this only works on the Mac. This is not a PC thing. So if you go to ProPresenter 7 on the PC, you won't see it on there, not because they didn't want to include the feature, but because it doesn't exist on the PC platform as an option. And Siphon Recorder, what it does is it shows you the actual output of ProPresenter. So you can bring in any Siphon output. So you'll see that ProPresenter is outputting that Siphon output, and I can either take a snapshot or I can start recording. If we go into the preferences for Siphon Recorder, we can see we can change what the recording type is. So if you want super high quality, you'd go with photo JPEG. You could also choose, H.264, or you could go way high quality with ProRes, and even do alpha with ProRes 444. So 444 will give you alpha output. And so again, if you don't have a background enabled, you should be able to, I believe, get alpha right out of there. Now, I could be wrong on that one, so don't quote me on it because I haven't tested that, but you should be able to get that recording. And then it just where your recordings are being saved, and then all you have to do is hit record. Now, again, you might be saying, Brad, why isn't that green with the text at the bottom? That's because my siphon output is my main screen output, which looks like this. So if I click on that and I go to my siphon recorder, you'll see it's exactly the same as my output. That other screen we were looking at has a custom look enabled for it, and so that's why we're not seeing it there. Okay, so that's one way you can record, but if you don't want to record on the same computer, you want to save some processing on your computer and you want to record someplace else, you can actually record via NDI. And there's a couple different programs from NewTek who created the NDI protocol. And one of those programs is the NDI Video Monitor. And you can download these by going to the NDI website. I just got to pull this up for you really quick. So if you go to ndi.tv, you'll find NDI tools. And there's NDI tools for Windows, Mac, and there's some extra stuff for Windows here. You can do, so with NDI tools for Windows, you have all of these different programs, and on the Mac, you have these ones a little bit more limited, but the main ones that you're going to use are Video Monitor and Scan Converter. So what's the difference between Video Monitor and Scan Converter? So Video Monitor gives you the option to view a NDI stream on any other computer. So if you wanted to take ProPresenter's output, send it over your network onto, maybe somebody on the stage's computer hooked up to a TV, it's a way that you could kind of wirelessly send video around your building. NDI Scan Converter is a way to actually do a desktop capture of somebody's computer and then use that as a video input on somebody else's computer. The place this comes in to mention with, or comes into play, is let's say somebody brings in a PowerPoint presentation and they want to do that PowerPoint, but you don't want to like unhook your entire video system for them to use PowerPoint. You can install this NDI Scan Converter tool. It'll scan and do a screen recording of their PowerPoint screen on their laptop on stage and bring that right inside ProPresenter for you to be able to show to your audience. So that's really, really powerful. Now let's look at how you can use that same tool to do a recording. So if we go back inside ProPresenter, you'll see we have our output going here. I'm going to pull up my NDI Video Monitor tool. And when I open this up, you'll see that I can choose from different streams. So if I go up to, let's see, File, you'll see all of my different streams. I'm going to use this computer stream right now. Actually, I'm not going to use this computer stream. I'm going to use another computer stream. So I'm going to use this other MacBook that I actually have sitting next to me that's running some lyrics. And so this is a stream playing from a totally different computer. And if I hit space, you can kind of hear my space bar clicking through. So I'm clicking through slides. This is playing over my network. And again, I can hit the record button here. And this, it's not super obvious, but that record button will start recording this stream. You can also send this full screen and we can, just view this as a full screen video input. So it's an awesome, easy way. And those NDI tools are totally free. You don't have to pay for them. They just require your email address. So those are the main two ways that you can record your video. You'd either use Siphon or NDI, and you can use those tools. And you can use those NDI tools to send NDI from a Macintosh ProPresenter machine to a Windows PC running the NDI tools, and you can record that NDI stream on that computer. Okay, I got another question here from Cody that I need to hit. So okay, sorry, I'm just reading this through to make sure I'm catching everything that's being said. Okay, so the last thing that we'll talk about real quick is just how to do looks again. I just want to re-hit that just to make sure it's really obvious what's going on. So I'm going to clear out everything. Let's go back to our computer. And inside ProPresenter, we're going to go to Screens and hit Configure Screens. Here we have all of our different screens. I'm going to make this a little more obvious, and we're going to say NDI. And I'm going to delete this one because that was just kind of a sample. And then this one's kind of our main output. So Our NDI screen here, we've selected an output that's being sent over NDI, so we've changed that to be a network screen sending over NDI. And then our main screen, that's maybe just hooked up to our projector. Today I'm sending it via siphon. So those are our two different screens. Now when I go to screens and edit looks, I can choose which layers and custom themes are enabled for each screen. So currently I have my main screen and my NDI screen labeled just like we saw in our screen configuration. And then we have a list of all of our different layers, just like we talked about earlier in our interface overview. We have all of our different layers. And now we can enable and disable different layers. For my NDI screen, I'm going to only send the slide content so that I don't ever accidentally get a background, because I really only want the lower third content. Because if I had a media enabled, there would be no transparency because there's a full screen graphic behind the text. So I have to get rid of that full screen graphic by disabling the media layer, and now I can enable the slide layer, and then I can choose a template. So I can choose this lower third text template. And now when I click on this on my main screen, it's going to look like this. And when I go to my NDI screen, we're going to get it looking like this. And that will pull right inside of OBS with alpha, because again, we have gone in our screen configuration for our NDI screen, we made sure to go to the alpha key tab and hit enable. And so that's how we can make sure that we are getting enabled alpha across our network. The last thing is for people who are wondering about training volunteers and making sure that this doesn't feel overwhelming. The thing that I would say is, as your volunteers, especially new volunteers, as you train new volunteers use ProPresenter 7, I think they're going to find it more intuitive than ever, because you can actually minimize parts of the interface to make it the least distracting as possible. So if I click the media button, we'll get rid of the media bin. I can actually minimize my library and playlist selection by clicking this arrow. I can still switch between them by clicking on the title, but now I'm only seeing today's playlist. I can see all of the content in it. I'm only seeing the current slides. And then over here, we can set it to our main screen. And when I click on stuff, I'm going to see exactly what's playing on my main output. I get highlights showing me exactly what layers are being shown and which ones need to be cleared out. You might need to mention that, like when you click these buttons, that's what clears different layers out. But the clear all button is very obvious and very easy, and the other buttons become very easy to understand as soon as you tell them what they actually are. Our playback controls are really obvious and easy below there. And so this is a really clean and intuitive and easy to use interface for a volunteer, because you've removed all distractions and it's simply just what they're controlling for today. So I think switching over a volunteer from Pro 6 to Pro 7, you're going to find out that it's actually way easier than you might think, because they're like, oh yeah, it just makes sense. I click on this, it shows up here, and then it outputs over here. I see exactly what I'm supposed to see, and I don't have to get confused by any other things in the interface, and I don't have any competing visuals that are distracting me from my content, because ProPresenter's interface is meant to be all about your content, not necessarily the interface. The interface is our, we like to say, the trusty sidekick to your content and helping your content shine and make it easy for you to control the content. The last thing that I want to say is that you can go back and re-watch this tutorial, as well as tutorials about individual things like looks and screen configurations on our YouTube channel. So make sure to go to the Renewed Vision YouTube channel. You can search for ProPresenter tutorials on YouTube, as well as you can re-watch this live stream here. I'm going to just ask Cody one more time if there's any more questions. And then I just want to just cover real quickly, just in a list point, how we can do all the different things that we covered today. So again, we kind of covered the overall interface. We covered how you can use, you can set up a screen that's actually sending over your network called NDI, and that can have alpha, and we can set a individual look for that using looks, so it's only sending our text, and we can make sure to enable, and then we can bring that inside of a program like OBS or Wirecast or different stream programs, and then we can use that to overlay our text right over top of video. We also talked about how you can use Luma keys or Chroma keys to bring in your output from ProPresenter into your video switcher using just traditional outputs like a HDMI cable or an SDI cable, one single one, and then in your switcher you would use either a Chroma key or a luminance key to key out the background based on how your text looks. So if you're doing a chroma key, you would want to have that green background. If you're doing a luminance key, you would want to have that black background. And then finally, we talked about how to record ProPresenter. So maybe you can edit that all together with, a multicam shoot that you're doing on a bunch of DSLRs or something. And we recorded that either using Siphon or NDI. And so we have different tools that we can do that with. There's a Siphon recorder that you can get, or you can use NDI tools from nditools.tv or nditools.tv. We'll try to leave links below for those, but those are the different ways that we can do all of that. Again, we had a totally different plan for this live stream about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we really wanted to help you in your local church really work through all of the things that are most pressing for today, because there's a ton of stuff that we could teach you about ProPresenter, but I wanted to make sure that you were resourced with exactly what you needed to get you through to this Sunday or through the next few weeks. And and I'm going to get choked up because I so care about what's going on in your local communities, and I hope that you're helping serve and love and care for the people in your community, and that your faith family is rallying around, and we're not just worrying about these tools and these new systems and all the chaos of the day, but we're praying for, loving for, and caring for the people around, especially the most vulnerable in this time. And so let's have each other's backs. Let's help each other out as much as possible. I know a friend's church realized that they have 4 different broadcast ready rooms in their building, and so they're offering it for free for any church in their area to use. And so if you have other churches in your area and you have a broadcast ready setup that somebody could come pre-record their service during the week, offer that up to them. Help us be the church together to care for everyone. Thank you so much for joining the live stream. Again, make sure you go download the newest version of ProPresenter 7.0.5. It's tons of great new features and performance updates. You can get that all at ProPresenter.com, and that's where you can find tutorials and links to everything else. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys, and stay safe out there. And we will be back with you soon.